You walk into your kitchen in the dark, you flip on the light, and you brace yourself for something to dart across the floor. For years, that was my house. Not anymore. I keep my whole home free of ants, moths, roaches, and mosquitoes for about $3 a year with no exterminator and not a single drop of poison. I learned it from old Japanese households, where this was simply how you kept a home long before a spray can ever existed. And by the end, I will hand you the exact method a man in Wakayama buried inside a dried flower in 1890. A method so simple you can start it this weekend. Even if you are 75 and certain, it is too late for you. I still remember the first dusty wooden chest I opened in a farmhouse outside Osaka, and the strange, clean smell that rose out of it. Let me tell you how I got here, because I did not believe a word of it at first. I used to think a clean house and a pest-free house were the same thing. They are not. I scrubbed counters, I bleached floors, I still had ants marching along the windowsill every spring like they owned the place. So when an older woman named Keiko first told me my problem was not dirt, I almost laughed. She said something I have never forgotten. She said, pests do not follow your mess. They follow your scent trails. And once she said it, I could not unsee it. Here is what she meant. When an ant finds a crumb, it walks back to the nest, leaving an invisible chemical line behind it. A trail of scent so every ant that follows can walk the exact same road straight to your kitchen. You can wipe the crumb away, and the road is still there. That is why they keep coming back to the same spot, the same corner, the same crack by the door. You are not fighting bugs. You are fighting an invisible map drawn across your home. And no amount of scrubbing erases a map you cannot see. The old Japanese answer was never to kill what was already inside. It was to erase the map and make the house unreadable to them. That is a completely different way of thinking, and once I understood it, everything changed. Keiko walked me to a tall wooden chest in the corner of the room, the kind they call a tansu. She slid open a drawer and told me to lean in and breathe. There it was again, that cool, sharp, clean smell, almost like a forest after rain. I asked her what perfume she kept in there. She smiled and said it was not perfume, it was the wood itself. The chest was built from camphor, a tree they call kusunoki, and for hundreds of years, Japanese families stored their clothes and bedding in camphor wood because moths and silverfish will not go near it. No mothballs, no chemicals, just a tree that does the work on its own. I want you to sit with how old this is. During the Edo period, which ran from 1603 to 1867, ordinary households across Japan kept their precious silk kimonos safe inside camphor chests for entire lifetimes, passing them down through 3 and 4 generations without a single moth hole. 300 years of families solving a problem that I was paying a man in a truck to spray for. The camphor tree near the Atsuta Shrine is said to be over 1,000 years old. These people were not guessing. They had watched what worked across centuries. Now, you may be thinking you cannot exactly go out and buy a camphor chest, and neither could I. But you do not need one. A small block of camphor wood or a cotton ball with a few drops of real camphor oil tucked into the back of a drawer or a closet corner does the same job. I put one in every drawer where I keep wool and linen. The moths that used to ruin my good sweaters every winter have simply stopped coming. That alone was worth the whole journey for me. So I had solved the moths. But I started asking a harder question, and this is the question that pulled me deeper than I ever expected to go. If this knowledge worked so well, and was this old, and this cheap, then why had I never once heard it in my whole life of buying products to fix the very same problems? That question is where the story stops being charming and starts making me a little angry. Because here's what I found when I dug. The reason you and I never learned any of this is not an accident. For most of human history, every household on Earth handled pests the way Keiko's family did, with plants, wood, smoke, and scent, things that grew nearby and cost almost nothing. Then, in the early 1900s, and especially after the Second World War, a brand new industry was born. An industry built entirely on a simple idea. Why let you solve a problem for free with a plant from your own garden when they could sell you a can you have to buy again every single month? The synthetic pesticide business was worth almost nothing in 1940. By the 1970s, it was worth billions. And that growth did not come because the old methods stopped working. The camphor still repelled the moths. The old plant still drove off the ants. That growth came because a whole generation was quietly taught to forget. We were taught that a problem in the home required a product from a store, and that anything our grandmothers did was old-fashioned and dirty and not to be trusted. The knowledge was not disproven. It was buried under advertising. I am not telling you to be afraid of your cabinet under the sink. I am telling you that somebody profited enormously from you never learning what Keiko learned at her mother's knee. And once you see that, you start to want the old knowledge back. I know I did. I wanted all of it. And because I wanted all of it, I spent years pulling every method, every plant, every forgotten household rhythm I could find out of old farmhouses, aging notebooks, and the memories of women like Keiko, and I put everything I gathered into a complete guide called the Japanese Home Method. It is the full system laid out step by step, season by season, so you never have to piece it together on your own the way I did. Every camphor drawer trick, every Haka spray formula, every citrus peel placement, and yes, the complete Wakayama chrysanthemum method I am about to hand you. It is all in there, organized, so you can start this weekend with whatever you have on hand. If you want to go deeper than this video can take you, the link is in the description below, and I think once you have it in your hands, you will wonder how you ever kept a home without it. So I kept going, and the next thing I learned cost me almost nothing and changed my kitchen completely. It is a humble little plant called Haka, which is Japanese peppermint. Now, I had heard of peppermint, of course. What I did not know is that Japanese mint is not the same as the sweet stuff in your tea. It is far stronger, packed with a cooling compound called menthol at levels Western mint never reaches. And for centuries, Japanese farmers grew fields of it specifically because insects cannot stand it. Records of Haka cultivation go back to the 1700s. And by the late 1800s, the Hokkaido region was producing so much Haka oil that Japan supplied most of the entire world's supply. Whole towns lived on this plant. It was that valuable and that effective. Here is exactly what I do, and I want you to write this down because it could not be simpler. I take a small spray bottle, fill it with water, and add 10 to 15 drops of Japanese Haka oil. That is it. I shake it and I spray it along the baseboards, the window sills, the door frames, the back of the counters, anywhere I've ever seen a single ant. The scent erases that invisible trail map I told you about. The ants come to the edge of where I sprayed, and they simply stop. Like they have hit a wall they cannot read their way through. One small bottle of that oil lasts me almost a year, and that is where most of my $3 goes. But it does more than ants. The same spray, misted near a window screen on a summer evening, keeps mosquitoes from drifting in. A cotton ball soaked in it, tucked behind the stove, tells the roaches this is not a place for them. I keep one in the cupboard where I store rice and flour, and the little pantry moths that used to get into everything are gone. One plant, one little bottle. A problem I used to throw money at every month, solved for pennies. And I will tell you the moment it truly hit me. I was standing in my kitchen one July night, the window open, the air soft, and I realized I had not been bitten, I had not seen an ant, and I had not bought a single product in months. I just stood there in the quiet, and I felt something close to grief, honestly, for all the years and all the money I had wasted because nobody ever told me. Now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now, because I thought it too. You are thinking this all sounds fine for a younger person with the energy to fuss with sprays and cotton balls and chests, but you are tired, your hands are not what they were, you have done things your way for 50 years, and it feels far too late to start changing how you run your home. I want to talk to you directly for a minute, because this next part is for you especially. It is not too late. It is genuinely not. And I am going to give you the single easiest method in this entire video. One that takes no strength, no bending, no spraying, and costs you almost nothing, because the old Japanese households had a method, even for the frail grandmother who could barely leave her chair. It is dried citrus peel. That is all. In Japan, in the winter, families eat enormous amounts of a small sweet orange called mikan, and for generations they never threw the peels away. They dried them by the window or near the warm stove until they turned hard and curled. And then they tucked those dried peels into cupboards, into closets, along shelves, into the corners where pests like to gather. The peel of a citrus fruit is full of an oil called limonene, and insects, especially ants and moths and silverfish, will not cross it. The Japanese even had a name for the dried peel used as medicine and household help, chinpi, and it appears in texts going back centuries. You do not need to buy a single thing. The next time you eat an orange, a tangerine, a lemon, any of them, you simply do not throw the peel away. You set it on a plate near a warm spot in your home and let it dry out over a few days. Then you place those hard little pieces wherever you have seen pests, the back of the cupboard, the windowsill, the closet shelf. You can do it sitting down at your own kitchen table. There is no part of this that requires a young back or strong hands. And when the peel loses its scent after a few weeks, you simply replace it with the peel from your next piece of fruit. It costs you nothing because you were going to eat the fruit anyway. I gave this exact method to my neighbor, a woman of 81 who lives alone and cannot get down on the floor anymore. She had given up and assumed she would just live with the ants. Within 2 weeks, her counters were clear. She called me, and I could hear in her voice that it was not really about the ants. It was that she felt capable again. She felt like she could take care of her own home. That is what this knowledge gives back to you, and that is why I cannot stay quiet about it. So, if you take nothing else from me today, take that dried citrus peel in the corners, starting with your very next orange. You can begin tonight. But I promise you something at the start. I promised you the method buried inside a dried flower in 1890, and that is the one I have been saving because it is the most powerful of them all, and it has the most extraordinary story behind it. I want you to picture a man named Eiichiro Ueyama in Wakayama, Japan, in the late 1800s. He was not a chemist. He was a farmer, a man working with the land. And he became fascinated by a particular flower, a daisy that looks almost ordinary, a kind of chrysanthemum the Japanese call jokugiku, the insect-killing chrysanthemum. This flower holds a natural compound, pyrethrum, in its dried petals. And that compound is one of the most effective insect repellents in the entire natural world. It confuses and drives off mosquitoes, flies, ants, fleas, almost anything with too many legs, and yet it comes from nothing more than a flower you can grow in a pot by your door. Now here is where it becomes a story I have never been able to forget. Ueyama began by burning the dried powdered flowers to make a smoke that drove mosquitoes out of the house, but the early form was just powder thrown on a fire, gone in minutes. He wanted something that would burn slowly through a long summer night. And the breakthrough, as the story goes, did not come from him. It came from his wife, Yuki. She looked at the thin sticks of incense they were making, which kept breaking and burned out too fast, and she suggested they coil the mixture into a spiral, like a snake at rest, so it could burn slow and steady for hours from a single small shape. That spiral, born in their home in 1902, became the green mosquito coil that has protected hundreds of millions of people across Asia for more than a century. It came from a flower, a farmer, and a wife at a kitchen table who solved the problem that the entire chemical industry would later try to sell back to us. The company Ueyama founded still exists today. But the knowledge underneath it, the part that matters for you and me, is far older and far simpler than any product on a shelf, and you can use it without buying their coil at all. Here is what I do, and this is the secret finale I wanted you to have. You can grow this very chrysanthemum, the one they call the Dalmatian or insect flower chrysanthemum, in an ordinary pot. A packet of seeds costs almost nothing and gives you years of plants. When the small white daisy-like flowers bloom, you pick them at the moment they are fully open because that is when the pyrethrum in them is strongest, and you hang them somewhere dry and out of the sun until they are completely dried out. Then you crush those dried flower heads into a coarse powder with your fingers or a simple spoon. That powder is your $3 a year pest defense, and it does three things. First, you can sprinkle a thin line of it across a doorway, a windowsill, or the back of a cupboard, and crawling insects will not cross it. Second, you can steep a spoonful in warm water, strain it, and use that liquid in a spray bottle along your baseboards, just like the Haka spray, for a double layer of protection. And third, and this is the oldest use of all, you can place a small amount of the dried flower on a heat-proof dish and let it smolder gently to clear a porch or a room of mosquitoes on a summer evening, exactly as Ueyama first did before the spiral was ever dreamed up. I grow a few of these plants every single year now. The flowers cost me a packet of seeds and a little sunshine. I dry them on a string by my window, and every time I crush a handful into powder, I think of Yuki coiling that mixture into a spiral by hand, keeping alive a piece of knowledge that almost slipped under the floodwater of every spray can and bug bomb that came after. She did not let it disappear. Keiko did not let it disappear. And now, sitting here with me, neither do you. Think about what we have gathered today. Camphor wood in the drawers for the moths, kept alive across 300 years of Edo households. Haka, the Japanese mint that whole towns in Hokkaido once lived on, for the ants and the mosquitoes. Dried citrus peel in the corners for anyone whose hands are tired and whose back is sore, costing nothing but the fruit you already eat. And the insect chrysanthemum, the buried flower of Wakayama, ground into a powder that does the work of an entire industry for the price of a seed packet. Not one of these things requires a man in a truck. Not one of them requires a poison you would not want near your grandchildren. Not one of them costs you more than a few dollars across an entire year. And the truth that took me the longest to accept is this. None of this was ever lost because it failed. It was lost because it worked too well and cost too little for anyone to make money keeping you informed. The camphor still smells just as sharp. The mint still stops the ants cold. The flower still drives off the mosquitoes the way it did the night Eiichiro Ueyama first watched the smoke rise. The knowledge waited. It sat in old wooden chests and farmhouse gardens, and the memory of women like Keiko, patient, intact, ready for the day someone came looking. I came looking, and now I am handing it across the table to you. If you have ever felt deep down that the simplest answers to your problems were quietly taken from your hands and sold back to you at a price, then you already understand everything I have been trying to say. You are not foolish for sensing it. You were right all along. That instinct is exactly the thing the old knowledge rewards. So, let me ask you something, and I truly want you to answer me. Which of these will you try first, the dried orange peel in your cupboard tonight, or the little chrysanthemum on your windowsill come spring? And if you have an old memory of your own, a grandmother who tucked something into a drawer, a smell from a chest you opened as a child, tell me about it. Leave it in the comments below, because I read them, and every one of those memories is another piece of buried knowledge pulled back into the light where it belongs. Tell me, too, where in the world you are watching from, because these methods crossed oceans to reach you, and I love knowing how far they have traveled. And if any part of this stirred something in you, the sense that there is a whole world of simple, real, almost forgotten knowledge still out there waiting, then come and stand with the rest of us who are quietly digging it back up, one method at a time. Subscribe and stay with me, because the next thing I am going to share is something I found in the old Japanese kitchen, a single ingredient that families kept by the stove not for flavor, but to keep their food from spoiling for weeks without a refrigerator, and it is sitting in most of your cupboards right now. I will be waiting for you there. Do not let them bury this one again. Before you go, let me give you a few more things I learned. Because once you start down this road, you find the old households thought of everything, and I do not want you leaving without the full picture. There is the question of what to do about silverfish, those little gray creatures that slip into bookshelves and paper and damp corners. The Japanese answer again was scent and dryness. They kept dried bay leaves, what we might recognize as a cousin of their own aromatic leaves, tucked between books and inside drawers, and they kept those spaces dry with small cloth pouches of nothing more than wood ash or dried tea leaves to pull the moisture out of the air. A pest does not only follow food, it follows damp. Take the damp away, and you have closed a door you did not even know was open. There is the matter of flies in the warm months. I learned to keep a small bunch of fresh Hakka mint, or even ordinary mint from the garden, in a cup of water on the kitchen table the way you would keep cut flowers. It smells wonderful to us, and the flies simply will not settle near it. The same goes for a few sprigs of dried lavender by the door. These are not just country charms. They are working tools that happen to be beautiful, which is exactly how the old households liked it. And there is one more thing I want to press into your hands, because it ties everything together. The single greatest mistake I made for years was treating each pest as a separate war, a new product for each new bug. The old way was the opposite. It was one quiet habit, repeated through the seasons, that made the whole home unwelcoming to all of them at once. Camphor in the chests in spring, citrus peel drying on the plate through winter, mint by the window in summer. The chrysanthemum flowers hung to dry in the late season. It is a rhythm, not a battle. And a rhythm is something even the tiredest among us can keep, because it asks for a small thing often instead of a large thing all at once. That is the part that took me the longest to feel in my bones. I had been taught to wait until the problem was bad, then attack it hard, then pay for the privilege. The grandmothers I learned from never waited and never attacked. They simply lived in a way that left no door open, and the pests, finding no map, no food, no damp, and no welcome, went elsewhere on their own. So begin small. Begin with one peel on one plate by one warm window tonight. Notice what changes over the next 2 weeks. And when it works, and it will, let that be the first thread you pull on. Because there is a whole forgotten world stitched behind it. And I intend to keep handing it to you piece by piece, for as long as you keep coming back to sit with me. That deeper version, the complete camphor and scent trail pest system, room by room, picks up right where I stopped, waiting for you inside the circle. In there, you can ask me your own question, and a real person me answers you myself, never a bot. You won't be alone. You belong here with us. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen. Cancel anytime with one click. If this helped, do stay with me here on the channel. I share many more simple, gentle ways to solve everyday problems at home. Go ahead and subscribe and keep exploring.